That was the part I was like,
there was some types of
yeah. That's okay. God is like a unique thing. Like, yeah, no, yeah. And there was a thing. So I'm going to be pushing
Okay.
and whatever. Because they're all the same. And so what's wrong?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But that's why it was just an idea that, like, if you do this, that's so used to there. Okay. But yeah, maybe just okay, but I had
I just saw the time looking at this thing. It's so good. That's cold freeze.
Solicitation.
Yes. How would you do introductions to everyone? Hey Randy, how are you? I don't know.
Okay, everyone, I think we're gonna try and get started so we can stay on time. So let's grab a seat. I wanted to make sure, first of all, my name, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Terry West. I'm the coordinator for this work group. Throughout this proceeding, remember that I'm the messenger, so don't stuff that. Just the messenger. So, because after today, you're going to do that to me. You've got a lot of stuff that might be a little bit dry for a little bit, but it's what we've been tasked to do with the management group. But I want to make sure everybody has signed in. There's a sign-up sheet in the back, so please sign in at some point today before you leave if you haven't. And then there are also handouts that will be going through today, so there's a bunch of handouts back there. I think what I'd like to do, there's some new faces at the table. There have been in a couple of meetings, so let's just go ahead and just go do a quick round of introductions. So just your name, who you're affiliated with, or whatever you feel like saying, in a very concise way.
Okay.
Start with Randy.
Randy Wilson, Planning Director, Co-Manager of the Flood Control District for Columbus County, and Project Manager.
Leah Wills, I work for the county as a water policy analyst, and I work under Randy and other departments. And then I'm also the coordinator for the Uplands and Forest Work Group for this IRWM water plan.
I'm Jim Meadows, Sierra County Public Works Planning Director. You're welcome. Operated off the Public Corporation. Randy Westmoreland, Marshland Manager on the Tahoe National Forest East side.
Ralph Thorne with Columbus County Insurance Card. I'm John Colbert, work for Columbus County Department of Public Works, and I'm on the board for Columbus Corporation.
I'm Cindy Noble, and I'm the co-chair of this subcommittee group with Carl Cox.
I'm Carl Felt, I'm the chairman of the group. I'm also a member of the Upland Forestry Work Group, and I'm also the chairman of the Lake Almanor Watershed Group.
I'm Ron Lunder, I'm with the Mountain Meadows Conservancy. My name is Nils Lunder, I'm the director of the Mountain Meadows Conservancy in Westwood, and I'm also the president of the board of the Federal Resource Conservation District.
I'm Todd Miller, California Department of Water Resources, Northern Region Office at Red Bluff. Brian Hilburn, Forester Deputy and Bating Associates.
I'm Alicia Wilson, I'm representing the Northern
John Olson, Director with Columbus Corp. Jeff Ingles, Supervisor, District 5.
Jeff Carmichael, the Sierra Valley Resource Conservation District.
Louis Van Lex, Sierra Valley RCD.
All right, great. Well, thank you. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for taking time out of your day to join us and do this. I'm going to go through just a quick summary of what we're going to be trying to cover today. And yeah, I just noticed something on that way. If you're not familiar with this building, that's going to be around the corner. There's coffee and some food here too, so help yourself. We're going to go through a brief summary of the Regional Watershed Management Group, which I just refer to as Management Group through most of the meetings. They had their meeting on March 27th. We'll review real quick because what they decide at those meetings is pretty much dictating what we are doing at this level. So I'll go over what came out of that meeting briefly. We'll go over where we're at with the baseline technical study right now, just with the whole plan. We'll look at the IRWM plan objectives and resource management strategies. We'll be doing some worksheets on that, on that. And we'll look at the project solicitation. The project solicitation form came out on April 7th, so we're going to go over that and the timeline for that, and then we'll go over next steps. So at the meeting on March 27th, in terms of the resource management strategies, two meetings ago we had defined and prioritized. So the resource management strategies are in the California Water Plan. That we need to link what we're doing to those in our plan. So this group chose and prioritized 6 of those that we said we're going to take those on. And you guys do have those in your packet, so you should refer to that list. But there's about 30 resource management strategies. So we chose those priority ones. This was presented to the management group. They've now come back and said that they actually, when it gets to making recommendations about those management strategies, we need to include more because they want to have ownership over more of them than what we chose. So when we originally had chosen our priorities, we also had gone through that list and said these were possibilities. We had some that we felt like weren't our highest priority. So you'll notice on one of the matrices that I sent out, it has those ones that were less a priority, and they're asking us to consider those as well. So that's why we'll be looking at those a little bit today. So we still want to focus on the priority ones, but we also now need to also make some recommendations on those other resource management strategies. So that's coming down from them. In terms of goals and objectives, at the last work group meeting, we had gone over the draft goals and objectives, and we had made comments. So we have that was a separate paper I handed out. This is the final final goals and objectives. And so they took into consideration the changes of all the 4 work groups. And this work group had made a recommendation to add the word fish in goal number 2. The ag work group added a 5th goal. Again, that's on this separate sheet here. Which is to protect and enhance the health and economic viability of working landscapes. One of the objectives was dropped out because it was redundant with another one. And then there was a little bit of verbiage change on a couple of others. And then there were 2 that were added. So the ag work group added 2 objectives. One was to address economic challenges for agricultural producers, and the other was to work with counties, communities, and groups to make sure staff capacity exists for actual administration and implementation of grant funding. So that final list is here. And I'm going through these kind of quickly so that we can kind of really get to what we need to do today. But if you have any direct questions, you can throw them out in right now. Otherwise, I'll kind of do this pretty quick. So then we also went through the draft project selection prioritization criteria, the project solicitation package, and that again did come out on April 7th. It was emailed out to everybody. We're going to delve into that. We'll just go over that later today, so I'm not going to go into that very much right now, but they pretty much finalized that and it has gone out for project solicitation. In terms of prioritization criteria, that one was and will continue to be a little bit of a real difficult one for the management group to deal with, as you can imagine. So they were presented with a preliminary criteria in terms of how they were going to rank projects that were put forth by the work groups. And they're still working on that one, so we don't really have anything definite in terms of the project criteria that's still being worked out. And we really won't be working on that at all today. That's not really
No, I think you're fine.
Okay.
More work on the prioritization is definitely been the directive for the management group. So, but we don't have anything new to share other than they want us to work on it quite a bit.
Right. If you're interested in viewing the whole management group meeting, or actually looking at all the materials that were presented to that meeting, you can go to the website, featherriver.org, and you'll find it on there under the meetings. Submeeting. The next management group meeting will be Friday, May 29th at 1 p.m. at the planning department. So,
May 29th?
yeah, May 29th at 1 p.m. So in terms of the baseline technical study, this is to summarize, and this is a requirement for part of the plan, this is to summarize all that we pretty much know in terms of management-related studies and data within the region, which will hopefully guide what projects that we continue forward with and gives us some baseline to go for in terms of the long-term management strategy of the plan. So the consulting group, there's a separate handout. There's a nice little handout like this that was in the back there. This will basically gives you a list of what they've come up with so far towards the back of it, plus it tells you the main plans, the other plans that we have to end up planning to. So all of that is in here. There's still, if you guys know of any plan, any data, anything that's out there that hasn't been included in that list, or you see a gap, please let us know if you will. And even if it's in a hard copy, we'll get it scanned, we'll get it in there, but the more information we have, the better we feel equipped to keep planning what to keep them in and what to do, and where there are gaps. They did, so far have found that there, I'm not going to go through this entire list, but here are the database categories to date. That's the way that she's divided up, or our consulting group has divided up the different articles, so it makes it a little bit easier to see where our data is. So these are the different categories that they've been divided up into. The data gaps that they're finding so far are in conjunctive water use and conjunctive water management resources. So we seem to have a real lack in that, and I know there's been a little bit of misunderstanding, or not, confusion about what this conjunctive water use stands for, and really it's about linking groundwater and surface water in a management way and planning for those times when we don't have water. So not a lot has, I think, been done up here in this area as much, so that's where they're noticing a little bit of a data gap in that. So that would probably be something put in the plan as we need the resources to do more of this type of management. For that data gap. Recreation planning resources, we have a lot in terms of like Forest Service, they have a lot of management plans out there, so for public lands, there is information, but in terms of private, like Eureka or one of our other recreation organizations, there's really not too many plans out there, so they're still trying to gather those. And then water supply and management plans was also recognized as an area where we don't seem to have a lot of data and information right now. So if you know of anything that's floating around and any of those topics that you can contribute that you don't send with us, again, just email it to myself or to the consulting team. Just any questions on that, or okay?
Send them to you or to?
You can send them to me and I'll pass them on to Uma. It's perfectly, it might be just the easiest just because to send it to me. But you can also, the contact up there, you can, if I put it to the next one, then you can also, you can actually also send it to that email address. I don't know what it'll make it to. And then what I thought I would do real quick, and forgive me, I'm not enough person. I'll reduce this one. There's my bottom. I'm going to reduce it.
What are you going to do now?
I just want to get the website.
Just go down and find supply.
Damn. And down and low if I can do it. Okay. All right, now I'm here. So just to familiarize, there's those of you that haven't been to the website recently, and I would encourage you to look at it as much as I mean, when you can, there's constantly being information put on here. But where we now are starting to house a lot of this is in documents and document library. And if you go there, there's going to be links to as many of these studies and management things. There's also an interactive map here where you can click and you can see what studies have been collected or gathered from different areas. If you scroll down further, you can get a whole list. So if you're interested in any of these studies, we've got links to most of them. So if you're ever bored one night, it's like you can just start going down the list. The one nice thing, they don't do it on the websites of the hard copy. The one the benefit of using or looking at that first is that it is divided into categories, so it makes it a little bit easier to figure out the topic that you're interested in as the studies that you.
The one that says you can hit a search, and it will up there in the document, and you can put these titles in there, the categories, and it'll take.
Okay, it'll take it right. Okay.
Are you looking for projects, studies, EIRs, or land use projects within the two counties where there were like technical studies done?
You know, anything, yeah, that would give us information for, projects, what's been done out there, because that's a huge part of it. You don't want to be going back and reviewing something that you're reinventing the wheel or putting money into planning for something that we already have some information on. So, yeah, anything along those lines.
Do you have those in electronic?
Some.
Yeah, and I think, UMA will definitely still take hard copy and we'll scan it into a format. So Aaliyah just mentioned too that you can do a search. So if you just go here, you can actually search for the documents based on the documents. Right. All right, so to sort of tie what we're doing in terms of today's work, so we have the goals and objectives that have been defined. 2 meetings ago, this group came up with a list of issues, or this last meeting actually, we came up with a list of issues, and that pertain to this group. And they're really central to everything we're trying to do. So a lot of what we're trying to do today is going to be a little bit dry, because we're trying to tie things together so that the consulting team can actually formulate this and put it in the plan, but get your sense for how these things link. And it's all tied to issues that we identified for this group. So we're going to try and identify to link those issues to the resource management strategies as outlined by the California Water Plan. We're going to tie it to goals and objectives, and eventually we will be tying it to projects as well. So the issues are really like our core thing that we're going to, but we need to link it then to these other things for the plan. So in terms of and that was something that was sent out earlier to you guys, the issues and projects. What? Do you have a comment from you? Okay. We'll be, and I think once we jump into the first matrix that we're going to work on, we'll be able to see the list of issues. It's all on that first. It's on the top 5, right? Yep. So, I guess what I'd like to pull the group on is, if you look at this page in your packet, the resource management strategies, the work group selections, like this. It shows what all of the different groups, so this is what they presented to the management group. If you look across the top there, the different work groups. Where there's a really bold X, that is one of the priority, that will be the priority resource, one of the resource management strategies that was identified by a group as their priority. So you can see that there's a little bit of overlap on some of the groups, but a lot of the groups also just picked, they're the only group that's going to be take ownership of that management strategy. You'll also see just a little tick mark, and those were the ones that the groups said, yes, we're interested, we see some ties with what we're doing in our work group, but we don't want to take ownership of that one. And this is where the management group has come in and said, well, we see a number of these, such as precipitation enhancement, where no group adopted it totally, so they don't want to see it just get dropped and no recommendations made for that. So the consulting team, we pretty much have decided that any group who said they were somewhat interested in a resource management strategy, be glad to pick all 30. I think this group picked about 20 of them. Muni picked about 26, so they really set themselves up for a lot of work. But we will be addressing those as well. So it's not just the 6, that we prioritize. We are also going to be making recommendations on the others. So this will, if you look down on the Floodplains, Meadows, Water Bodies Management Work Group, you'll see the ones that we chose.
So now it's not just the ones with X's, anything that's ticked under our column, we're taking that on too.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. And
Well, and I noticed that, I had a question about this, several questions, the groundwater remediation, aquifer remediation. Oftentimes remediation refers to, clean up, pollution and things like that. Does this also include recharge?
Well, they do have a recharge, there's a recharge area protection down there, number 24.
Okay.
And if you want to get a sense for what each of these, if you go just the next page over, which we'll be referring to this as well through the resource management strategies, and if you look at the definition of what that RMS is, it usually includes, and it gives you some examples of what might be included. But I think when we looked at when this group looked at that, the definition that seemed to fit was the recharge areas, recharge protection areas, so it's a bit better for. And the thing is to, again, to remind you of these resource management strategies, we can add, they give us examples of possible approaches, but we can add something a little bit more specific to this area that seems to fit. It seemed like a lot of the examples that are already given cover pretty much what this group is doing, but we do have the ability to add some examples of possible approaches, but we don't have the ability to change the definitions. That definition is set, but we can use. So if after reading that definition, then we think that there's something that we need that won't get included in sort of the recharge protection area, we could add another strategy.
Yeah, that definition isn't in there though for either 15 or 24. Not in my packet.
Oh, it should be. I've got a packet. This should be. Did you pick up a packet off the table? Oh.
I just printed off a
It's
cable to the internet.
It's in this
It's in the
packet.
packet, yeah, if you just grab one.
I will.
So what he came up with all the groups together was that there were 6 of the strategies that were selected by more than one work group and 15 that were selected as a priority. So the 15 is what they're really interested in us, coming back and taking a little bit of ownership we did remove 3 of the resource management strategies as just not being applicable to the region, and that was the conveyance delta, the desalination, and the surface storage, the Calca state. So those have been, we're not going to be addressing those at all. So I guess what I would like to know from you guys is, I feel like we already selected the resource management strategies. We went through that exercise that we were interested in. If anybody has any disagreement with that list or wants to, if they see something that this group wants to add that we don't already have as part of our list, then this would be the time to kind of bring it up. Otherwise, this is the list that we'll work from. So
Well, I do want to go back to 15 and 24 because we think that groundwater interaction with surface water, meadows, and floodplains is pretty crucial. And right now, I mean, nobody's taking any interest, priority interest in groundwater. They're passing it apparently, the tick mark interest. And I would think that potentially this group may want to take more interest in the groundwater, surface water interaction than might be indicated by the prioritization. I'm just throwing that out.
Well, agree with that, and also, in terms of surface storage, we have Mountain Meadows Reservoir right next to our town. I'd like to see that reservoir filled at the end of the wet season. They didn't even put the boards in the dam this year when we had a chance to capture that water. And I think that also impacts, the groundwater recharge. It's just like thousands of acres of dry dirt out there now. And then a better year with better management, there'd be water on top of that land right now.
Okay, so
That might be conjunctive.
conjunctive will also apply to both of these.
That's like surface and ground, that's the thing under conjunctive management that you would talk about. How do you use your reservoirs, your groundwater, all this for dry year storage? Well, how are we going to try and do that? So some of these don't fit us. They're big in other parts of the state, and we're going to have to work within these boxes. But I think what we mean by it is how we make those boxes work for us. And I think the state will prefer it because it's a huge state. We can't define all this the same way. So that's why I think conjunctive management, that gap, is where you could just weigh in. But what it means to us is that we want to see these reservoirs and groundwater operating the streams and the surface diversions, and so we have more value protection. Something like that.
Well, Carrie, why don't we pick 15? I had responses from folks who wanted to get involved in some of these other things too that we really don't have an emphasis on. So I don't see any reason why our group shouldn't be addressing 15.
Well, 15, the description is a 15 fit, or do we feel like it's getting covered?
Groundwater contamination is good.
Does 15 really apply to us, or does it kind of cover it more under the recharge area protection, conjunctive management, and surface storage? It seems like those. It is okay. Other regions have adopted while we would like to address as many of these resource management strategies as possible, because then that links everything we're doing to the California Water Plan in a very strong way. If it doesn't fit, we can put it in other groups. There are some regions that have only picked 7 resource management strategies, which others have picked like 27. So there is a range.
Well, if we've got somebody on the committee that wants to address the issue, the way it's gotten written, why not do it?
Well, by definition,
That's what
that definition doesn't fit what Jim was looking at, or what you were just looking at. It doesn't look like it.
The 24 does.
Yeah. And I agree. So we already have 24 tick marks. So one of the things that we can do, we can either leave it tick because we already know we have an interest. And I think in some of the work that we may be doing today, where we tie the objectives and issues and resource management strategies, it can elevate to something high. We can still make recommendations on it. So I think that's one of the things too. When we think the priorities, we realize that as we link it to our issues and other things, that things may rise to the top more important than we originally had them at. And it's really about, because this group, I'll grab in just a second. This group is very diverse. We've all recognized that. This is probably the harder group to work on because we have such diverse interests. And so what we really need to do is that if you have a particular area that you're interested in, make sure that you're kind of here to champion it and do it and carry it along. Because that's the way that it'll get, we just need voices for every aspect of this. And I think it's really great that we have all this diversity, but we just need to keep, let me wrap up because he had his hand up. Jeff?
Well, in the interest of maybe focusing more or prioritizing really on what we're kind of here to do, I think, or this group is here to do, I would suggest that we let the forest management go to the forest group. That's a specific that's about as specific as you can get. There is a forest uplands work group, and we could concentrate on one of these ones that we have ticked rather than.
Okay. And I hear that the reason the forest and that was actually a question mark, and then it got sent to the management strategy, Uma took the question mark off and put it in bold, so, and so we still probably addressed some things, and the reason forest management ended up turning up in our work group is because, for whatever reason, the water plan included some things that to me were very much meadow specific. It talked about meadow restoration, and it talked about, pond and flood type of stuff. They spent several pages on that chapter, so that linked it automatically to us, but we don't have to make it a priority, and I can throw out a suggestion that maybe we make the recharge area protection more of a priority, elevate that one, if that seems reasonable, and then drop that one to a tick mark. We can agree. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Actually, I was thinking that maybe,
Or is there tick mark?
8, 13, and 24, maybe I'll be looked at as a priority, because they're all linked together.
13 and 24.
I would suggest that number 13 be a higher priority, certainly over the forest, but even over the which one is the recharge area protection? 24, because this, like Mr. Lunder indicated, that the storage facilities do accomplish several things, the recharge being one. So I would put, personally, I'd put number 13 as a higher priority.
Okay, well, how about if I don't know if it is marked, as John said, 8, 13, and 24 as higher, with an X, a more bold X. And like I said, as we go through what we're doing today, it may shake out that we don't include in those. We're going to have to deal with them all anyway right now at this point today, whether they're high priority or just partial. When we get to the recommendations, that's when we're going to really be focusing. And again, that will probably boil down to someone or some two people taking ownership of it and making sure that we get the recommendations into those groups that we feel the most strongly about. So does that work for everybody to have that, or does everybody want to drop recharge protection area down to a lower
Well, the
priority?
thing about recharge of 23 and 24 is all 4 groups have ticked those. So, I mean, I'm not saying we don't have to comment, but everybody's going to do that work.
Right, so we can make that a lower priority and everybody's doing a little bit. Okay, we'll do that.
What are you gonna do again? What's your
We
summary?
moved 24 back to us.
So, yeah. So I'll go over what we are trying to come to an agreement on here.
And can we just clarify real quick, in the beginning you were summarizing the regional watershed management group and how they want to have, it sounded like they wanted to change some of these ticks to crosses.
Right.
So what's the main goal here is we're trying to figure out, we want to, the county, the region wants to have more work group priority selections. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, what they want, so the guidance we kind of got initially was prioritize 6 or 7 resource management strategies for your group, and those are the ones you're going to make recommendations for the plan, so we would be responsible for making those recommendations that would go into the plan. They then realized that there's some gaps where none of us took total ownership, so the ones that have tick marks just across, and so because they had told us just to focus on 6 or 7 and make recommendations, they were afraid we wouldn't get any recommendations for those. So we're now taking ownership, but it can be partial ownership. We don't have to we can still keep the same highlighted, maybe add a couple, but we now have to look, and at some point we might be making only one recommendation in the recharge area protection, but because we show that there's a link, we do have to do something. It's just not, we don't have to make all the recommendations for it. Like on some of the strategies where we took sole ownership of it, those ones or even the priority ownership, we would be expected to make most of the recommendations, if not all of them, for that particular strategy. So what I was hearing from them is that they were afraid we'd have gaps where nobody would actually make recommendations. If we all said, ooh, we just did a little tick mark, we're sort of interested, the other group will take care of it. Only some of these, all the groups have done that. So So that's kind of where we're at with that. So, you know, we don't need to prioritize like 10. That's not the message that I'm getting. We just need to acknowledge that we're going to do work as well on these tick mark ones, which that wasn't the message we got initially.
And then coordinate with the other work groups.
Yeah, so we'll be combining efforts on those, so.
Terry, I have one more comment on that. I see that all four groups have shown interest in this, but if any group was to take a priority, make this subject a priority, it would seem to be that it would be our group. And so I would argue that we would keep that as our priority, yes.
Okay.
I'd like to just add to that and saying, you know, that particular piece of that recharge area is really Argos floodplains more than any other element.
For us up here, yeah.
So Terry, what the municipal group did, you can mark your sheet on this, is they took 6 and made them next. They took 15 and made them next. And they took 19 and made them next. So they chose 3 more for emphasis, sort of what you're doing. So what we want to really do here is to move a tick to an X and do this discussion for this group. So far I'm seeing 8, 13, and 24, which you've added as a solid X.
I got a response on 8. There's someone in our group that wants to work on 8.
Well, and that's why I said.
Yeah, we've got an X.
We've got an X there,
We
next
are
on
working on it
13, and the next on 24. From your discussion so far.
So we got 3, yeah. And we dropped 1. So we dropped 1 down, forest management. We dropped forest management down to a tick. So we'll have, yeah. So the ones that are remaining, and again, there's 2 more work groups that get to meet, but whether they'll take ownership of these. So the other one we're looking at is like 29, which is water and culture. We took a tick mark on that, so did uplands and forest. I don't know if there's an interest in reading that description, whether we want to just keep those tick marks or.
Right? Yeah. 22, did we change, drop that?
Yeah, 22 has been dropped to a tick mark.
Tick mark, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Terry. Or Randy, can you tell, which ones are we prioritizing? 8, 13?
8, 13, and 24. We've been changed to an X, 22 has been dropped down to a tick mark.
Okay.
A little bit on the 15. Anybody know of any contamination, groundwater contamination? I think there might be a little related to gas stations in some of the communities.
There are some tank sites.
But those are already really, environmental health departments have to address those in the state. But it's not really rising up. It's not like the Spring Polo acid pits in Riverside County where they got from LA and dumped it there, and it's a huge mess. We don't really have that kind of contamination.
And there are 3 landfill sites in the county that are being monitored as well.
And so, and Muni Group has taken that one on, so they took ownership of that one, so I think we're okay. And we sent
back to number 29, I believe that will be a main priority for the tax group.
Okay.
So, and the reason I believe they're not listed on here as a work group is they're not technically.
Right. So would you want to make a contribution in terms of recommendations, or do you think that'll get covered by?
I'm hoping it will. I'm here without my supervisor today, so I'm not really sure.
I think it's really important.
Yeah.
I think it's important too, but I think it'd be great if we could partner with uplands and forest and kind of have a joint venture. Because it seems like we'd have a stronger effort if we had kind of like a unified front between forest and meadows for the water and culture.
Yeah, you know, there's these integration meetings that are gonna be scheduled, and this is what this is headed towards, you know, so, of course, you know, we got 2 ticks, we're gonna have to talk about that, right? You know, in these integration meetings, and where are we, what are we thinking, are we saying the same thing? Is it even close? Is what's not being said? You know, that, so we'll be having like formal ways to do that in the future, so right now, it's like do your own thinking, get ready to come to the meeting and see what other people are thinking and see if we can just wrap this up and okay, this is our kind of joint ideas on this.
Leah, what are we doing with 15?
Who's we?
It looks like we're not
Municipal.
Municipal's gonna take it on.
Municipal's taking that on.
As a priority.
Yeah.
They added again, number 6, system reoperation, the groundwater remediation, number 15, and they added 19, stormwater runoff management.
You know, what seems to be missing is groundwater management.
Yeah.
Kind of tied into the conjunctive management, where it's got broken down a little, and if you can recharge protection.
That was before we had the ground, see, this is, the California water plan got done before the groundwater legislation came in. So now the groundwater legislation is sitting on top of all this, and all of us are groundwater managers. So it's really hard to figure out how we do this, you know, so
So
they.
you will notice that we've added wastewater NPDS, another resource management strategy that's not listed as part of the law.
So everybody's kind of reaching at, okay, so what's our job in this groundwater management thing? And I think the thinking is we work up through the work groups. What do we think it means? What do we think our actions would be? How do we address it?
We're probably gonna get some direction from DWR on that. They have a massive, program going on.
Well, right, but they're staying away from, they're really focusing on the huge overdraft basins in the San Joaquin. That's gonna keep everybody busy. We've got one medium listed basin in our system, but the rest of them, we haven't even started looking at it yet. So I think it's gonna be kind of one of those things that we address as we feel like it, but it's not in this plan yet. You know, so, but it's coming, we all know it's coming.
So if it is coming, how do we, as Clemens County, position ourselves so we're not scrambling to react? Like how do we?
We're proactive, so that's why we could add a category groundwater management, make everybody do it, you know, or we could just say through our work groups and this land, water, we have a goal that says land and water are connected, and, you know, so, and we really know that surface and water storage are connected, and we know these things, so as we work through our work groups, maybe we tell the state how we think they're connected, what we think's important about that, and what we wanna do about it, you know, but without, you know, nobody's requiring us to do, but we probably should do.
Well, and it's kind of all your conjunctive management.
When I think of precipitation enhancement, if you thin the forest and more goes into the ground, then you're enhancing precipitation because it went into the ground and you can use it instead of flying off into the air. So,
Precip enhancement, they're kind of.
no, but we're saying, yeah, we know what they're saying it is, but this is what we need. You know, so that's another way of doing it. That's.
So I guess the question is.
Maybe can I get people to sort of raise their hand? I know Jeff has been very good about it so that we kind of deal with people and be respectful of one another. So if we just go ahead, who raise their hands with it.
Well, I just, 2 things. In terms of the groundwater management stuff, I too was under the impression that conjunctive management, I don't know call that, or took that in, but my main question was, I hadn't even noticed that this last strategy, the wastewater NPDES, can you explain what that is?
Okay, if you're like the Quincy CSD, they have a discharge that occurs, I think, primarily in the winter. They have a diffuser pipe that goes in, and they have an NPDES permit to discharge.
So this is probably more directed at wastewater
Right.
and sanitary districts.
The mill out here,
We have one at the landfill.
right, landfills have the mill. SBI has a NPDES permit, they discharge.
I'm wondering if there's any,
They're trying to get away from it, but they do have an NPDES permit. One of the reasons they built the pond was they would discharge from a portion of the site into that pond and not into Mill Creek.
so this would be strictly specific to people that have that specific permit?
Yeah.
Okay.
It should be.
So,
We certainly don't want an agriculture user to have to go through that, that's for sure.
so I think to keep things moving along, because one of the things that, to sort of remember, I mean, as we're doing this, is that none of this is set in stone right now. So it may work as we work through the work, you know, continue to work through this process, and things are going to fall out. I think we've done a pretty good job. At this point, we've added a couple more as priorities, and we've filled in some gaps that the resource management group wanted. There's a couple more groups that need to do it. And really, the emphasis today was just to let us know, too, that we're going to be dealing with the tick mark. So even if something has a tick mark right now, and it doesn't have an X, we're still dealing with it, so it won't be like we're going to ignore it. So I think if everybody's okay, I'd like to kind of just keep us moving forward so we can, and again, some of us will get teased out, but I think that the input and discussion we had is really good and help us, hone in on the priorities that we want to work on. So what I'd like to do right now, and I don't know how many people have had a chance to take a stab at this, but what we've been directed to do is fill out some of these matrices, and it's to start to link our issues and the resource management strategies and the objectives together. So the first one, I'll pull out the one that has the work group issues across the top. It should be the first one in your packet, and then the management strategies listed down the side. And the idea was to go through, if you had a chance beforehand, and I know a few people have done it already, was to go ahead and X in where you see those linkages, and you can do one. I don't know how many people got my email yesterday where I walked you through an example. Has anybody had a chance to look at, I guess maybe just show of hands, who would actually took a stab at this? Okay, so we got Ryan, and we got Todd, and Cindy, and Jeff.
I took a stab at it, but I got really confused and gave up.
Okay. Okay. Maybe it's because I'm mathematically or another inside or something that didn't even make as much. The way I looked at this and felt like it was easy to do is just to help as a reminder, and I had the description of the resource management strategies with me, because that helps sometimes to kind of figure out, if you look at your examples, you can kind of see where that might, where our issues might fit. So if you have that, which we're just looking at in our packets, it's kind of handy. And this is where,
You want to do the objectives first, or just?
No. And it ties our issues to resource management strategies. So it's not the first one, it's the third piece.
It's the last.
Is it the last one? Okay, so I didn't put the packet together. Does everybody have the one that has issues across the top? And then strategies down the vertical. Now let's throw out is it the third? Okay, it's actually the third one in the packet. The third page.
The one I did.
Everybody got it? So what I need to look at, because everybody looks a little different. For me, what was easiest to do when I did this is I took our first issue up here, water quality. The first thing across the top. And I just went down and I looked at the resource management strategies and I said, which one does this fit into? And again, that's where I was able to just sort of, glance at this. Some of them are really obvious. And so I don't know what's going to be the most efficient way. You either, I know that Cindy's done this, our co-chair. I can let her go down and we can, what maybe we could do by column, maybe this would be a good way, is that Cindy could mark what she put down, and you guys can mark it as we're going if you haven't done it, and then if you see something.
Or agree or add to it.
Agree or add to it, but if you just let her get it started, that might be the fastest way rather than taking some of these and try to discuss them.
Okay, so I said water quality going down there. I started with pollution prevention, agricultural land stewardship, recharge area protection, and sediment management.
Could you go over those three, please?
Absolutely. Pollution prevention, ag land stewardship, recharge area protection, and sediment management. And you can either like them or change them. If you guys want to add to that, that's fine too.
Is that ecosystem restoration?
That's fine.
Well,
So any of these in the left column, we can
It's what's related to water quality. So right now on the topic of water quality, which of these resource management strategies do you see fitting with?
But I mean, the ones that are in bold with an asterisk, those are.
Those are the ones we had prioritized.
Okay.
We've now added a couple of those, but we have to do all of them. So these are all the ones that we either tick marked or we prioritized. So
I would suggest that flood management has flood management's got a huge impact.
Okay.
Water quality, okay?
Also conveyance,
Well, like I say, precipitation enhancement needs to be in there. We did a whole study on cloud city and everything up at the water group, and the feedback we got from even local people, it belongs in water quality, trust me.
Okay.
What was the other one? Yeah.
well, I was thinking flood control, flood management, conveyance, and I'm not sure, maybe I'm misinterpreting that, but it occurs to me that most of the erosion and sedimentation takes place in conveyance systems, or some of it does. I may be kind of misunderstanding that.
You're right, Jeff.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much all these, if you ask me, including land use planning and management, I mean, how could that not have any impact on water quality? It's like water treatment. Yeah, so I feel like it'd be tough to eliminate any of the ones on the left-hand side from water quality.
Well, I think, let's see, what about management, outreach and engagement, water culture? And I mean, it's obviously these are all interlinked, but you might want to kind of really think about the ones that directly address it.
Well, I think agricultural and stewardship belongs in that.
Yep. I don't know.
Water dependent rec, I mean, 2 strokes driven up.
Well, I guess I would actually kind of let these guide us a little bit. And water dependent rec was really about marinas, and it wasn't. I mean, well, no, I'm sorry.
Like
it was more about access.
Yes,
more about covered in, I believe it's pollution prevention. I think it was covered more where it covered marinas and stuff.
It's more like BMPs, like how would you do it?
Plunge?
Yeah, I think you need to really focus on the definition. We're just going down and looking at the phrase, going, yeah, that seems like it's great, then I'll find the definition, and it doesn't fit at all.
Right. So, so can we kind of just have one person talking at a time and try to work through this? You guys need to talk outside a little bit and further strategize. Step outside. So what I'm hearing, I think that this is the intent that I understand too, is like, at some point, we could probably mark every column on here for all these, because they're all sort of wrong with the water, and all related to water. But again, and that's where I included the resource management strategy again in your packet, was this is the way that I am interpreting and do it, is we try to at least initially stick to what feels like it fits, and as Ryan just pointed out, to a particular resource management strategy. Now, in light of that, maybe the easier way to do this, so we aren't flipping pages, is that we take flood management and we go across the top so that we're reading flood management as we do that. Maybe that will make it a little more efficient. Does that resonate with you a little better as we look at flood management? And then we go across all our issues across the top and we say, these are our issues that fit the examples we've seen. So let's try it that way, and that might be a little bit better. So if you just flip to flood management.
So what's the sense of the group for flood management and water quality? Did we get a consensus there?
Well, let's look at the description and see if people will. So you've got policies and practices related to educating the public, preparing for, mitigating the damages related to responding to and recovering from flooding, as well as protecting the natural and beneficial functions of floodplains. And they give you some examples over there. And I wasn't sure that I really saw the direct link there, at least the way they outlined it, but it needs to kind of come more from you.
Well, I would kind of think that potentially you may have a system here very similar to the could be, resource management strategies, where there are certain categories that are very important to a certain strategy or issue, and others that are probably tangential, and others that are not.
Right.
And flood management as defined, probably, water quality is not an issue there, and actions related to flood management are not directly related to water quality issues. There's so much crap, natural and otherwise, in floodwaters that it's not like worrying about temperature or pollutants in a low flow system where they're really concentrated and they're really having a major effect on the aquatic organism. For us, that's a water quality issue, more than what's going on in a flood.
Jim makes a great point. In flood, you're gonna have that water quality. I don't care what you do. So, is that a water quality issue? Probably not. We can try and fix it, but in reality.
WR might look at all the sediment in the system going to Oroville as an issue. But, again, it's so, what are we gonna, consider water quality? What is our definition of our water quality issue?
Exactly. And that is part of why you are here to do is to define that for this group and what will help drive forward the issues that you want to address. And my thought was we either just say yes and a no on these things, like either X or we don't. I don't know if you guys want to go the route where you want to just pick marks or anything that's tangentially related, that can get complicated, but it's really up to you as a work group. I mean, you kind of see that we've got this whole chart to go through, but,
We have 3 tables, but a lot to do.
But you can see this one.
Okay, so Terry, do you want to read off what we have so far?
Well, Cindy, we just, I don't know if you had just said that, I feel like I don't want to go down, I think going across the column, even next tied to this, does that make more sense to people? Because I want to do what works for you, I know what works for me, but that's not really critical here, it's what works for you for us to be efficient. So if we take each resource management and go across the top with the strategy?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because then you can read, you can look right at the thing. So Cindy, you just want to read across the top what you have and give a stab, and that's what we'll start with.
Okay, then flood management, I just checked. Flood management timing, and, now it doesn't look to me.
Why?
Extended stream flow water release, I don't.
How does that not work?
Okay, that's what I have, that's all I
You
have,
have those two?
that's all I have.
Okay, so we just have the 2 marked for flood management, which are extending stream flow, water release. So that's, we'll open halfway across the page.
So we're doing flood management across the top.
Yeah, I mean, feel like that, I'll do whatever you guys want.
Yeah, let's do
Just
that.
tell me what
But let's
you
just go
consider, 'cause-
one at a time, I think,
Okay,
if we
so
start
then
with Cindy.
Water quality, is it a tick, yes? Nils?
Well,
I think Jim made a good point.
Okay, then yes, should we say yes?
I'd have to argue that both water quality and quantity should be checked on there, because flood management, in my mind, is managing floods. It's keeping floodwater from transporting sediment, and it's keeping the water in the upper watersheds for a longer period of time. Whatever your flood management strategies are, that's what they're intended to do. And if you do that, then the water's going to come out of the watersheds more slowly. It's not going to create a lot of erosion. It's not going to create a lot of sediment. So it does affect quality and quality.
Okay.
We had an issue up at the lake where the water quality of flood management was an issue because they had built catch basins to catch the excess water. What they didn't do was put in some kind of a filtering, and we had a major, can't remember the people's name, but the mud and everything, when the thing did overflow, instead of capturing it and try to
so then we agreed that for flood management, water quality and water quantity will be checked. And then fisheries habitat? John's saying
For the
yes?
same reason.
Okay.
If you keep the sediment out of the water, and you keep the erosion and all of that, minimize that, you're gonna,
Okay, I'm cheating now, you guys.
Yeah.
Okay, so John does not have grazing on public lands, but we both agreed to graded meadows is a check going across. And
We have a comment
Just a
right
second.
Okay, go ahead.
My concern, I have a concern about flood management. And whenever the state of California talks about flood management, they talk about two things: levees and reservoirs. Is that what we're talking about here? Because
No, and, yeah, Bill, before we get, off on a tangent, if you look at the resources, you pick up a packet over there. And again, remember you guys, like, maybe we'll kind of feel like every time we put an X here, we're like committing ourselves to some scary road. We're still in the process. When you get to the recommendations, this is all leading to recommendations. So if you can kind of hammer this out and get an idea of where we deal with these issues.
Okay,
When
then
we make the recommendations that
okay, then we also see a connection between flood management and degraded meadows. Agreed? Flood management and water bodies and sediments. Flood management and water storage, release, and impoundments. Flood management and timing. Flood management and preserving floodplains. Also flood management and extending stream flow water release. Flood management and sediment management. And flood management and integration of programs. Okay.
Everybody agree?
folks agree with that.
I'm still thinking about this grazing on public land, why that couldn't be included. Those are the issues they have up on Mount Meadows. What do you think about it?
But it's not, it's flood management, it's not, I don't know that that's, is that really quite.
I think that sounds just on flood management,
But we have some other research
Other
strategies
research.
that we addressed, yeah.
That seems like it would be more like the condition of that, rather than that direct. Whether you grade it or not, may affect your flood.
Could the creek was there, ever come back.
So let's move on to then, you want to read the final? Okay, I'll read the final so everybody can get it. It was water quality, water quantity, fisheries habitat, degraded meadows, water body sediments, water storage, release and elements, flood management timing, preserving floodplains, extending stream flow, water release, sediment management, and integration of programs. We're going to move on to conveyance, regional and local. And let me run and just read the description real quick here. So the conveyance or distribution of water from locally developed sources to the end user located within the same watershed or river system. And some of the examples they give: improving conveyance capacity by widening bottlenecks that constrict the movement of water, improving water quality by transporting more river water when water quality conditions are high, and reducing water diversions when water quality is poor, providing the operational flexibility to divert and move water at times that are less harmful to fisheries. So those are the examples they gave for conveyance, regional, and local. So Cindy, you or John, want to go across on that one? And
John and I are doing this together. So we say conveyance, regional, local, you check water quality, you check water quantity, you check fisheries habitat, you check grazing on public lands, you check wildfire impacts, you check water body sediments, then on to water storage and release, then on to extended stream flow water release, improve wildlife habitat, improve recreational facilities, integration of programs, better collaboration
Between agencies.
Between agencies and people. And then also adding threatened and endangered species.
Terry,
Yeah.
can you please read the description again of the?
Okay, sure. So the description, the definition of the strategy is the conveyance or distribution of water from locally developed sources to the end users located within the same watershed or river system.
So we're talking like ditches, pipes, weirs,
Yes.
that kind of stuff.
That's the way I would view it.
Locally developed.
Locally developed sources.
I'm sorry, I don't get the connection between some of those that Cindy mentioned there.
You're right, and they were different than when I made a stab at it too, a little bit.
Somebody else go for it.
And, yeah, I mean, if we want to talk about it,
I think
Stuart.
I'd recommend that sediment management might be an element to consider because a lot of our open ditches are unlined dirt and they move a lot of sediment.
Okay. Agreed.
I just don't get the connection between, for example, grazing public lands, fisheries habitat, wildfire impacts. I mean, I know there's a connection between some of these strategies. It seems like there's some that are probably better suited.
Well, in terms of the fishery, we have a lot of unscreened diversions where fish go down in the irrigation ditch and never come back.
What about wildfire impacts? What was the motivation behind that one in terms of conveyance? Regional and local. Somebody heard it?
Yeah.
I don't see a connection with grazing on public land or wildfire impacts.
I would agree with Jeff on that too.
Okay, so we'll take off wildfire impacts.
I'm just curious what the take would be for threatened and endangered species.
Yeah, same there. So.
In this watershed.
Right.
I think it had to do, in my mind, with the stability of the flows in the conveyance systems. A lot of, for instance, the Illinois Good Process, they depend on water. If there's something we can do to assure that that water is there for a longer period of time in the year, it's going to be there for threatened and endangered species. That's the reason I selected it.
Okay. And they have a real problem keeping that in. It's no harm if, again,
Well, the other thing, having worked in the canyon projects under the FERC licenses, if you send the water down and retract it to it, you are stuck for that. You know, so a lot of it is don't bring them in a place where you can't sustain the flow. So, you know, it might be how it's interpreted, but it's not that you send more water, so you don't attract them there if they can't live there. You know, so
that's a strategy to consider, though, right there.
I just don't see it fitting with that.
yeah, as a FERC license, I don't know what that is.
Well, I still have a problem with locally developed sources.
I mean, everything that I've heard you talk about is something that's a natural flow.
No, we're talking
We're
about
talking
ditches.
about water that's
Irrigation.
That's not a source.
by man. Where's the local source you're talking about?
It's in the definition, but in the examples they give, I mean, they talk about improving water quality by transporting more river water when water quality conditions are high. I mean, we can, it sounds like this group wants to interpret and use it up here for the ditches. I think that it.
I think we're getting away from the true definition of water to the end user, and we're going down in terms of, you know, so that would be the end user of the ditch. But we're saying, well, no, the ditch is a problem. We're saying, you know, that's for the end user to determine to some degree. And we're trying to make it work for maybe what we want it to, but in reality, I don't think that's the definition.
Okay, and we will be continuing to vet these out, like even this list that we come through today, I'm probably gonna run it through the consulting team and just make sure that like we're all using these same definitions, so some of the stuff may drop out. But I hear Ryan, because we've got like, you know, we've got 20 resource management strategies, and the more that you can fit your issues into, it's good, but again, if we're contriving stuff, then that isn't also going to really be good for us. It's actually any more work. Jeff?
Well, I just want to one more time say that we got rid of the grazing on public lands and wildfire impacts. I guess if I understand it right, I disagree with John there in terms of the threatened and endangered species. I think that there's all kinds of places that are addressing threatened and endangered species, and by bringing that verbiage into anything complicates that strategy and that management of that. I would certainly be opposed to threatened and endangered species being a part of the conveyance system.
How do other folks feel? I know that Brian, you're
I
kind of
think
getting
they're
about
very,
this.
again, we're talking about an end user, and I don't see how threatened and endangered species are. And I think there's other places that can go, but I don't know.
Right, as long as each of our issues has at least one home, one resource management strategy, we're good. And then if we have multiple, that's great too. And that may be really what we're, trying to
I
focus
think
on.
you want to look at the best resource management strategy for the issue, not how
Exactly,
many
yeah,
issues
that's
can we
wrong.
cram into one resource management strategy.
And again, if one of them does tease out, we don't check something here today, but it comes out in our recommendations, we still let us have opportunity to bring it up if it happens. So if it turned out it was something that fit. But I think like Ryan is saying, we're gonna find that a lot of our issues are gonna fall already in some really core resource management strategies. So
Yeah, I agree. I'd like to focus our issues on the specific strategies. And if we have checks all over the board, it kind of dilutes the meaning of the.
Right, of actually trying to hone this down. So do you have
So if we took out threatened and endangered species and wanted to focus that somewhere else, I mean, really, we should take out fisheries habitat and wildlife habitat. I mean, because, if we think it affects fisheries habitat, then yeah, but the frog being a threatened species, it should fit in there too.
I agree with you.
So if we want to focus things, then we take all three out, or for one.
Okay, so everybody good with that? So
I'm
we're
not.
gonna call out in some
And
other
I'll-
resource management.
I'll tell you why. My experience with writing these grants is that the more issues you can address, the better chance you have of being successful. And so if you're going to convey water and you can find a way that it benefits some threatened or endangered species, or it improves fish or wildlife habitat, you have just added support to your grant application. So taking these off is not necessarily a good thing for a person who wants to convey water to an end user, in my opinion.
And just one of the examples, not to make it a little more difficult, but one of the examples that you say is providing the operational flexibility to divert and move water at times that are less harmful to fisheries.
Right.
That is something they actually do hire this one, so.
And that's going to benefit anybody who's looking for a grant for that type of project.
Yeah, I guess my point is, those three are connected. Either we keep all three or we drop all three.
And I think the word that Joe uses, you kind of dilute the, I'm not sure how you said that.
The meaning of it.
Yeah, you
of this-
dilute
this work.
the significance if we include it in a whole bunch of different.
Well, what's the pulse of the group? Should we leave
But
those three?
but this
in
is
or
a
take
water
them?
management plan. So the point is, rare and endangered species, wildlife and fisheries habitat are directly connected to water. And to eliminate those three from any of these things it isn't a matter of diluting it. It's a matter of saying, oh, well, we can put in ditches that don't have, and we won't have any support in other areas for the grant that we're writing.
And since it was specifically using it, I feel that probably at this point, maybe we just leave it in. And again, it's there. It's a tool. It's something we can use if it doesn't turn to be real applicable later. So it's just, and so.
Well, if we keep going at the rate we are, we'll be here to midnight. Could you review them again, please?
What was that about being here till midnight?
At the rate we're going to get to
I know,
our
I
page,
did
we'll be here at midnight. I did bring
And
my-
this is hard, the meeting group did not finish all these matrices, we're gonna try, but it's this
Hang on.
What were they?
So, conveyance, regional and local, it's water quality, water quantity, fisheries habitat,
These are the ones that are in still?
these are still in. Wildfire impacts.
No.
Yeah, I don't know what else to just get to it. Water bodies, sediments, water storage release impoundments, extending stream flow water release, improve wildlife habitat, improve recreation facilities. I'm not sure where. We don't use that. Sediment management, integration of programs, better collaboration, and team species. Well, okay, so let's see, we'll jump down to conjunctive management. Let's go across on that one. You want to keep doing it, Cindy, or Joe, have you done one?
I'll read the definition for you.
Okay, you can do that. You want to have me talk, and that'd be awesome.
Way to go.
The coordinated and planned use and management of both surface water and groundwater resources to maximize the availability and reliability of water supplies. Now you're back on.
It doesn't say anything about water quality in the definition.
Nor in the examples.
It's more of a supply.
Groundwater storage,
Supply is that one.
So quantity, obviously.
recharge, groundwater storage and recharge.
So can I, let's see, can I have one person who just, so groundwater? Oh, yeah, anybody want to take a stab on that one?
Meadows, can you do this one?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll go down the line. So I think water quality wasn't addressed. Water quantity, I'd have to say, is a direct nexus. I guess water bodies and sediments.
Agreed.
Somebody explain
Can you make that clear?
Well, it's about management of groundwater storage and surface water supplies.
I think, yeah, this is really about supplies and sources and the management of that. How do we move that water around to mitigate for times when it's drier and stuff? How do we effectively manage that movement of that water? So I think that quantity could definitely be a part of it, but some of these,
So water bodies?
sediments,
No? Okay.
I don't think so, no, because there's no sediment.
Okay.
Applies to that.
Water storage,
Okay.
things like that's relevant. Let's see, flood management, no, it's not. Reserving floodplains, what do you guys think?
I would suggest that flood management might be when you consider the timing part of it, when you're talking about, I think part of the description was management of surface water, so timing, flood, I don't know.
These are your issues, you have to.
I'm not-
Flood management.
I'm gonna agree on.
Maybe just
Keep
rush.
going, keep going, Mills.
I guess integration of programs. Better collaboration. That's where I'm gonna leave it.
And I'm gonna add extending stream flow water release.
Okay.
Okay.
So to clarify, water quantity,
Perfect,
water storage release, impoundments,
great,
extending stream flow water release,
agreed,
integration of programs, better collaboration between agencies and people.
perfect.
Good luck, everybody.
Are we talking, is this just for water supplies? Is that the goal of this strategy? Okay. Because I would think, for maximizing availability of water in channel, then you bring fisheries into it. But if we're only focused on water supply. Because fisheries through the summer, they're basically supported by groundwater inputs to the channel. But looking at the very last two words there, we're talking water supplies, then at some point we're talking domestic or whatever. Human use.
I think human uses is where this is more. That's my interpretation. This is what it's just that moving water around and storing it so that we can again mitigate and offset seasonal supply. So precipitation enhancement.
That would be a quantity issue for sure.
So also called cloud seeding, a form of weather modification that artificially stimulates clouds to produce more rainfall or snowfall than would be produced naturally by injecting substances into the clouds that enable snowflakes and raindrops to form more easily. That is the definition of the emission strategy. So pretty specific on that one.
I would suggest that water quantity would definitely be the first one to check on that. Water quality, I don't think it's going to have an impact from additional precip.
Well, not as different than what the studies apparently show.
When you look at contaminants that are in fallout, and we found major increases in nanoparticles of aluminum and some of the other materials that I mentioned. Very negative.
All right. Were there any others on this one? It's a pretty specific one. Were there any others?
Collaboration works to the other end of the scale.
Better collaboration?
Yep. I would suggest if you have increased precip that you're going to have an impact on fisheries habitat and grazing boat.
Yeah, they're going to have fishery habitat. I've got fishery habitat, irrigated meadows, and then improved wildlife habitat and threshold and endangered species.
I don't know.
I wouldn't include the degraded meadows and wildfire and the habitat impacts personally.
I did have the same stream for water. Got on the water for long.
Okay, so.
But their examples include wildfire. Cloud seeding in mountain meadows to delay start of fire season.
I don't think it's increased precip would have an impact on grazing.
Well, that's what you guys do is want to include grazing.
Because not everything is irrigated.
So grazing on public lands.
But it's also about our region, and where are we really talking? We're talking about the snow zone in mountain northeast is really what we're talking about. So in that basin, maybe that's, this is a pretty narrow, it's narrow in where it's applied. Yeah. And so if we make it really big, we're going to spend a lot of time on something that's about this big in watershed. And not that it's not important where it's happening, but I don't know how much. Again, we deal with it in the FERC licenses, and it's really narrow.
Most of the open grazing lands are on the east side of the county.
You're not doing
cloud seeding.
There is no cloud seeding program for most cities.
Some people would be
Cloud seeding might.
I know, but then it's really hard to tie. If you had to tie an impact from an event and all in there, because we're doing all this modification for the Upper Middle Fork project and bring it over the basin to some place way over here, you would have an extremely difficult time making a connection like that. That's what I'm saying. How much time do you want to spend on it? And I understand it's big in the basin. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying this is a watershed plan for the whole region.
So in terms of our meadows, water quality and water quantity, maybe things we still want to stick to? Water quality and...
Well, I don't know about water quantity. We're still talking about precipitation because PG&E, when we had the big forum and all that kind of stuff, they said that maximum of the impact was like 3% of the water in the basement. It makes a difference, but it's not significant.
So the biggest concern coming from, since you're from the Elmer region, the biggest concern it seems to be then the quality of, or the impacts it's going to have
Right, the water quality, but everything else that falls under that, that deep in the water, and, for example, we had issues with kids playing in the snow. And you get into the nano particle problems, and it really gets extended.
Right.
But I don't know
I'm
if you
gonna
want to
jump in
address
on-
that here.
I was at those meetings, there was nothing conclusive on some of that stuff you're talking about, Carl.
Well, we
yeah,
got
I
the
think
formal
we're kind of
report,
getting
they
off
did
the
a
weeds a little bit.
presentation in Las Vegas on it, and there was,
Can you bring it back to, so, is everybody okay with putting water quality as, since it has been addressed as an issue, we put that one in, and then we have better collaboration? And then recognizing that this is a very specific little area that's probably gonna get addressed on its own, but, I mean, is this something that we really want to take ownership and spend a lot of time making recommendations on, and that's also what it goes down to.
I guess the point is, what's the point of even arguing about this? I mean, some people are alarmed about it, but there's, I don't ever hear any compelling evidence that makes much of a difference.
Okay.
But like I've heard people from the east side saying, well, you know, you didn't see the clouds over Almond, or they get more precipitation over there. So who knows? When the rain falls somewhere, it doesn't fall somewhere else.
There's always something to find.
So we'll have, some, and again, that's maybe all that we have is just some small recommendations in the plan that refer to the Almond Regional Basin, but again, it's not really a region-wide thing, so I think we do want to move forward here. So I can summarize, is that we pretty much just did water quality and better collaboration for this one.
What about water quantity?
And water.
Yeah.
Okay, we want to say, okay.
That's why they
That's
did.
like-
I mean, that is the purpose, whether it matters that or not. That's right.
That's point. I think Ryan, right?
Yeah.
I think Ryan's point of extending the stream flow, water release, seems like a logical element of the water quantity piece. So I think that'd be logical to put back in there. So in the center of the column, extending stream flow, water release.
So we have water quality, water quantity, extending stream flow, and better collaboration. Are we looking for that, or is it- Okay.
I gotta go back to the question. Where do we land on conjunctive management? That was kind of, well,
Conjunctive was water.
for the floodplain stuff, the flood management timing and the preserving floodplains, did we check those?
We did not check those.
I think probably preserving floodplains, just for, since we've already discussed that they're the recharge areas, that preserving floodplains would be an issue for conjunctive management.
To improve
I'm
water.
sure certainly have to check.
Preserving
But
floodplains.
got brought up, did you go back over to all the checks on that?
Conjunctive management.
Yeah.
Water quantity, water storage release, preserving floodplains, we put that one in. Extending stream flow, integration of programs, and better collaboration.
That works for me. Thanks.
And we're good, with precip enhancement?
Yeah.
Okay. Surface storage, regional and local, let's see here, description. The use of human-made above-ground reservoirs to collect water for later release when needed. And then the examples they give are expanding existing regional or local facilities or developing new regional or local facilities. So it's the use of human-made above-ground reservoirs to collect water for later release. Someone want to take a stab at it? We did it. Should I just read them and go across and then say anything?
Perfect, let's try that.
Water quality.
Yes. Yes. It has an impact on it, whether it's good or bad.
I like the point we're talking about expanding existing facilities and developing new facilities.
The use of.
So where does water quality come in?
Plan has a measurable factor can on water quality. Temperature, flows.
Look at the
So
outflow
the
temperatures
management
of
of
Lake
those.
Allen for one thing. That's an impact on water quality.
Regional facilities. What is the
But does that have anything to do with expanding or developing facilities?
Well, what they have in the definition, they have the use to collect water, and then they have the expansion and developing new ones. So that they have use So I would say use might include existing.
Say expanding existing regional or developing new. That's what the purpose is.
I say quality, we should check it.
Okay.
I say quality.
Quality, quantities,
Yes.
just fisheries habitat,
Yes.
grazing on public lands,
Okay.
graded meadows,
No.
wildfire impacts, water bodies, sediments,
Yes, because that's an attenuation price. For
Could you back up the wildfire impact?
wildfire impacts.
Because when they're fighting, when they're, I don't know what this, when they're fighting wildfires in the area, they pull water out of Almanars. The helicopter comes in with a big 3,000-gallon bucket and
Right.
dips up and goes and
But I don't know that we really have much, what would we recommend?
I don't know, I'm just saying.
Let's say classify.
Let's talk about it, wildfire.
I think that's beyond the scope of what we would have any.
I see water storage and release impoundments.
Yeah.
Yes.
Flood management timing,
Yes.
preserving floodplains, extending stream flow, water release,
Yes.
improve wildlife habitat, improve recreation facilities,
Yes.
sediment management,
Yes, it goes along with seven.
abandoned mines impacts,
Interesting.
salmon, migration programs, better collaboration.
I kind of think that integration programs fits it.
Kind of a goal to it. And that may be what it falls out. So, can I read back, water quality, water quantity, fisheries habitat, water bodies, water storage, release, flood management timing, extending stream flow, improve recreation facilities, sediment management, and integration of programs. Going once, going twice, good. Pollution prevention. So reducing or eliminating waste at the source by modifying production processes, promoting the use of non-toxic or less toxic substances, the implementation of practices or conservation techniques, including activities that reduce the generation and or discharge of pollutants, and the application of innovative and alternative technologies which prevent pollutants from entering the environment by activities. And the main motivation for this one, for us being included in this one, was the fact that the last bullet point on their examples of possible approaches was marinas and recreational boating. So that seems to be the focus in terms of pollution prevention that's related to us as water bodies.
So this one, I only had 6 boxes checked.
That's probably, yeah, I'm not even sure I got that. Well, no, I think I did. So John, if you want to.
Water quality,
Okay.
fisheries habitat, wildlife habitat, improve wildlife habitat, that seems like it's kind of duplicate. Improve recreation facilities, and this is the one where I would put abandoned mine impacts, because we do have a couple of mines that that's a problem.
Did you say wildfire?
Yeah, just say.
Or, okay, excuse me.
Yeah, it's not
take that out.
done.
I thought that was wildlife. It's close. So 5, only 5.
Five. So we've got water quality, fisheries habitat, improved wildlife habitat, improved recreation facilities, and abandoned mine impacts. Anybody agree with that?
Well, again, I think if the intent is to try to stay with what fits best here, and I would agree with the mines, I would agree with the recreational,
Facilities.
component. Yeah. The water quality, I don't think that fisheries and the habitat stuff is best suited in that strategy. I mean, the big focus is on pollution.
but we're floodplains, water bodies, right? So we're thinking reservoirs, they get a lot of public use and stuff too, right? So Elmore basins,
That's what I was thinking, the fisheries within the lakes and stuff.
fisheries, people eat fish.
Davis and Frenchman's.
Right.
Right, so just the recreational use and kind of
Got
manage
the
it
loop is going.
in such a way that reduces impacts of users.
Water line.
But wildlife habitat may not be as with them.
I think the grazing under public lands is an issue here. There's a whole new grazing regulatory reform thing looking at this problem. And we have the problem of cattle trespass on the shore of Mountain Meadows Reservoir. And that, I think, directly impacts water quality by falling.
Again, I would suggest that is better addressed under ag land stewardship or land use planning and management or a number of other strategies.
Well, it may be true, but it's still an issue if you're talking about pollution prevention.
Agreed.
That fits right into the definition of the RMS.
It's reducing or eliminating waste at the source. And so the point is, we're talking about now that we're starting to look at, cattle being like a non-point source of pollution.
How does everybody, how do folks feel like putting in grazing?
It's in the definitions. Well, log has already started this year. We're going to be monitoring some of the tributaries, particularly the ones coming from Mountain Meadows down in Hamilton Branch and some of the other tributaries. We're already started monitoring those for contaminants, but find out where we're getting the problems in that kind of.
Right. So we just need to put them into the resource management strategy. So, Ryan?
One thing I would be cautious of, I do understand there's concerns is with this wrap, the grazing issues coming up.
Yeah, I'd be careful.
I would be very careful going down the road of grazing with the loop because there are a lot of signs out there that says other things are pollute, like recreation.
Right.
And I would be leery of going down that road because I think you'll discredit yourself very quickly.
I agree.
And there are some other places that it can
The
sit.
headwaters of the California Water Project, and you have cattle up to their bellies in the lake.
Again, it's just a science-based thing. If we're going to use a science-based approach, you want to have your science in mind right now.
Yeah, the
From
science is
everything
pointing.
that's out there, the science is pointing the other way.
And that just might be another area-specific thing. So it doesn't say that it won't be addressed and it can't be a project or that you develop, but we, again, we've got to think about the region and Ryan brings up a good point because the paper has just come out that doesn't really tie. So, and this will.
Okay, so let's take it out.
Other areas.
Let's take it out for now.
Okay. Jim?
Yeah, well, I do know that, there was one sampling effort done as part of the last chance study by UC Davis. And they particularly were looking at nutrients related to public land grazing. And basically, through several years of sampling, we were unable to detect any nutrients produced because of the dispersion of animals. There's only you can only handle so much density of animals and for a certain period of time. So by the time it gets to the water body and the sampling of the water body is not detectable. And I'm sure there's something there, but just in terms of detectable, like Ryan said, it's a defensibility kind of thing. I mean, can you measure something? You can measure it.
And the same
Let's
study
take it
was
out.
done
Let's
in
take it out.
Meadows Creek was the same result. It's not detectable.
So let's see, water pollution prevention, water quality, fisheries habitat, improve wildlife habitat, improve recreation facilities, abandoned mine impacts. Those are the 5 original ones we have. Are you good with those?
I could assess a question.
Susan?
Pollution prevention, in this context, would we include AIS?
Would it include?
Aquatic invasive species.
Yeah. What do they include that? This one, I know there is an area down lower that talks about.
Well, it says boat cleaning, and maintenance, boat operations, those things are,
Well, and we can add that to that, so we actually could, yeah, so that would be totally legit to put that one, yeah.
And that's in code recreation facilities.
That's already there. Okay, thanks.
So it's a total 5?
Total of 5, yeah. Perfect. Ag land stewardship. Water quality.
well, let's read the
Oh, I'm sorry.
definition, just.
I'm sorry. Ag-land stewardship, farm and ranch landowners producing public environmental benefits, conservation of natural resources and protection of the environment in conjunction with the food and fiber they have historically provided while keeping land in private ownership. So, some examples are managing cropland or rangeland to avoid stream-based erosion, stream-based stabilization, modifying grazing intensity and timing, cover crops, public outreach, land use planning to avoid agricultural land fragmentation and land conservation easements or conservancies. Those are some examples of
I must say, more quality and more quantity. Certainly quality.
Good. Fisheries habitat,
Yes.
Yes.
grazing on public lands.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, think about this is private land, I think,
No,
mostly.
there's no connection.
So I don't think there's no connection.
There are grazing leases on the Forest Service, up on Roberts Creek, north of Westwood.
Right, I think this specific RMS is dealing with private land.
Oh, private.
So
Well,
private
then,
land.
Big Mountain Meadows is, primarily private land.
So we could check the public land.
Mhm. So it can't do public lands. Degraded meadows,
Yes.
Yes. wildfire impacts.
No.
Water bodies, sediments.
Yes.
Conifer encroachment. Water storage, release, impoundments. Land management planning. Preserving floodplains,
Yes.
Yeah.
extending stream flow, water release. Improving wildlife habitat. Improving recreation facilities. Sediment management. Abandoned mines. Salmon. Little pork. Integration of programs.
Yes.
Better collaboration.
Yes.
Agencies and people. And CNE species. Yeah.
We're not going to include threatened and endangered species on agriculture land stewardship? We're not including that?
Seems like I should.
Well, also conifer encroachment.
Yeah, that's another.
It's a big issue with the aspen regeneration.
Mhm. And again, are we talking on private or public land? I mean,
But what's the difference?
well, there's a difference in terms of whether we take ownership of it here. And then remember the ag group, this is one of their primary ones, so, you know, we'll be contributing a little bit, but, I don't know how much. So are you thinking that conifer encroachment on
Well,
private
maybe it's not
meadows?
a major issue, but I mean, this is an issue.
And
But on private
I
land?
don't get the connection
I don't
between
get
conifer and encroachment on private land.
Well, where there's aspens and, the cattle graze off the shoots, they have to dry out and conifers.
I think that's a reach.
Yeah, well, I've seen it happen. There's no question about it.
Part of the reason the conflict is because of exclusion of wildfire, and on private lands, we can't go there harvesting. So it's not so much I don't know that it fits real. I understand what
I
you're
don't
saying,
think
because I agree there's
it's
conflict
yeah.
but I don't know that it fits right there.
If we've got, yeah, and again, the ag land stewardship one is kind of a reach for us. I think it's just one of those groups that will have some say, but it's not really our focus. Ag people are gonna be really focusing on their land, on the private land, so.
The Concord question's gonna be big enough on first. They've already identified.
And even for us, we've got other categories where we can hit that.
We even asked, from private agricultural owners who've got forest lands, is it an issue? People are like, yeah, but we'll deal with it, it's not.
I would think that wildlife habitat would be more appropriate, as something here, when you know that there are quite a few producers who do manage illegal for certain species or for all species, and that is the focus of their management.
Yeah, I agree. And in doing so, I think T&E, threatened and endangered species, should be considered for wildlife fisheries. Or something.
But then, private land's voluntary, so I think that's the difference.
I'm not sure I understand the connection between private land stewardship and degraded meadows. I think degraded meadows fits in a public land use or,
Well, I think that, degraded meadows have been identified on, and public land, private landowners have come to people and said, I have a degraded meadow and I want to fix it, so I think there's, there's a
Sure.
connection in that.
There's a lot of excluded fencing that's been put up along streams and, been put there to try to prevent degraded meadows. So, that is a management tool.
well, again, and I'll shut up after this, but it seems like with a little imagination, we can pretty much put an X in every box on this deal.
Well, I think we're just, we're making the best stab at it, and let's just maybe go through it, keep doing that, and we can be fine, and you guys can take this home and look at it a little bit more, and if you've got some compelling arguments, we can definitely, make those changes, but I think just, if we get a kind of a first stab at it, we'll also be able to kind of see where we have holes and where things are more important and more critical. So what we have marked is water quality, water quantity, fisheries habitat, degraded meadows, water bodies and sediments, preserving floodplains, improve wildlife habitat, sediment management, integration of programs, better collaboration, and T&E. The ecosystem restoration. And it might be worth it halfway through, but we have most of our bolded ones. To put up most of our thought into these bolded ones too. We still have to deal with these others, but make sure that on the bolded ones you really come to terms with what we want to do. Someone want to go across them?
Improvement of modified natural landscapes and biological communities to provide for their sustainability and for their use and enjoyment by current and future generations. Is the definition.
Here's where your animal species tend to show up.
So ecosystem restoration, I don't know if you want to see some of the examples they give, is reproducing natural flows in rivers and streams, curtailing the discharge of waste and toxic contaminants in the water bodies, controlling non-native invasive plant and animal species.
That's the AIS thing.
Yep.
Removing barriers to fish migration in rivers and streams, and recovering wetlands.
I have trouble excluding anything from that.
So,
Pretty broad.
we'll just go across water quality,
Does this mean we gotta take out the dams, the PG&E dams?
water quality.
We don't get a lot for that.
Fisheries habitat, yes.
Where we
Grazing
at?
on public lands,
Yes.
Ecosystem.
wildfire impact, or degraded meadows,
Yes.
wildfire impacts, water bodies, sediments, conifer encroachment. This is what I'm- Water storage, release impoundments. Flood.
They're talking about reproducing natural flows.
But we have another issue that does do that, extending stream flow.
Yeah, I'm fine.
So water storage, release impoundments. Flood management timing,
Yes.
preserving floodplains,
Yes.
extending stream flow,
Yes.
improve wildlife habitat, improving recreation facilities.
Yes. For outdoor recreation, yes.
Ecosystem restoration. Sediment management. Abandoned mines. Yes.
Yeah.
Sound in the middle court.
Yes.
That's the only one I would check for, the silent that will work so far.
Integration of programs.
Yes.
Better collaboration. T&E.
Yes.
Um,
And then we're gonna get this water storage release.
Water storage, release and impoundment is the only one we didn't do. So,
I just have one, why are we checking water quantity and grazing on public lands? What are we, what's the connection between? I think it's different than they did.
On the first floor. I mean, there's a whole, we could literally check every box on every one of them.
And we should. On this one, we should. This is ecosystem restoration.
and it's one that you've taken, you know.
This is the one that we should check every box.
I think
You're gonna take an all-inclusive one, this is exactly.
Yeah, and if you're talking about water releases, look what they do at Grand Canyon Dam to try to restore the Colorado River. That's exactly an ecosystem restoration project. We remove dumping water out of those reservoirs.
Joe, you got a comment?
Yeah, it fits. I think grazing fits, you know, it talks about sustainability. And that's one of our main purposes of our grazing management.
Okay. Yeah.
And I know, for Sandhill Springs, for example, you need to have grazing on some of these lands, so it's a two-way, you know, in some ways it's a tool. There's
Check 'em all.
other species, yeah.
Maybe
It's
check
not
all
just a
the things
negative,
that water
it's a
storage
thing.
and soundness.
Yeah, this is the one you think.
This is that
Check
and
them all, move on to
possibly
the next.
watershed management.
Yes.
So, I mean, I'm sorry, Terry, I'm sorry, didn't raise my hand.
You're okay. I just wanted to see.
So, we're checking a box if there's a negative impact, we're checking a box if there's a positive impact, we're checking a box.
If there's a pretty strong link, we're trying to find those linkages, and again, that's gonna help guide where we focus our energy and work on. And then, you know, definitely this is one of the highlighted resource management strategies for this group, it's probably where you're gonna be making a lot of recommendations to this one. So,
Just the link, because all we're looking for is a link.
yeah,
So-
but you know, it's not strong links, Jim.
Yeah, Jeff, I think, you know, if some of the strategies that are prevent, so there you're kind of looking at, you know, keeping the negative out, and others there's an improve, so that's where you'd be looking for your positives. I mean, just kind of in terms of relating to the direction of the strategy.
Okay, so just did we leave anything out of that one or not?
We just left out water storage release and impoundments.
And I disagree with that. I think that's exactly one of the ones that should be included in ecosystem restoration. And how you move water down is very important to fish habitat.
Just take a look at our favorite, Independence Creek.
Yeah, there's a good, best example locally we've got.
And all the perk licenses, we spend 90% of our time on that.
Across the board.
Yeah.
I'll put order on them, okay. We've marked everything on ecosystem restoration. Now, forest management is one that we are not highlighting, as of today, but we still want to address the parts of it that.
So it's no longer gonna be bold?
It's not gonna be bold.
Okay.
Very low key. The application of forestry principles, practices, and business techniques to the management of a forest to achieve the owner's objectives. Different forest landowners have different goals and objectives and different strategies to accomplish them. Water produced by these forests has economic value that equals or exceeds that of any other forest resource. And again, a couple of the examples that sort of tied Meadows and floodplains to this was meadow restoration, form of groundwater banking. Maintaining riparian forests, it's not so much managing grazing near riparian forests. Selective thinning of young small trees to improve stream flow regime. Here's the real connection with us managing illegal marijuana cultivation. So there's a small kind of connection there. This is the one we're gonna let Forest Upland probably take the, I mean, they're gonna take the lead on this one, so just think about that as we're going across here, so. Water quality, I mean, I would focus on what does it mean to Meadows and let Forest Uplands, you know, mark their issues. So water quality.
Yes.
water quantity,
Yes,
fisheries habitat,
absolutely.
grazing on public lands.
Well, forestry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, managing grazing in or near riparian forests is an example they're giving right here.
In that case, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Degraded meadows, wildfire impacts,
Yes.
water bodies, sediments, aquifer encroachment, water storage, release impoundments,
Yeah, we're talking about meadow impacts, yes.
But we're talking about forest management.
forest management.
Forest management.
And again, really, our link to this one is the part that they talk about meadow restorations, and that's really kind of like we just think that our group's going to have. So how about flood management? Preserving floodplains. Extending stream flow and water use. Improve wildlife habitat.
Yes.
Improve recreation facilities.
I want to know why we loggers have to improve wildlife habitat and the ag people don't have to. Just a joke.
I just want to be a troublemaker today, don't
Probably just mean-
sediment management.
Yeah.
Abandoned mines. Salmon and milk. Integration of programs. Better collaboration.
Yes.
C&E.
Yeah.
So we've got water quality, water quantity, fisheries, grazing, graded meadows, wildfire, water bodies, aquifer encroachment, extending stream flow, improved wildlife, habitat, sediment management, better collaboration between agencies and people, threatening endangered species.
I would think that integration of programs would fit in there.
I mean, that's so vague, I mean.
Yeah.
We can always work on our.
And you can work on whatever, these were issues you guys, this group came up with, you can always refine and hone those maybe too. Land use planning and management.
The orderly and planned use of land, resources, facilities, and services with a view to securing the physical, economic, and social efficiency, health, and well-being of urban and rural communities. With the directing development away from ag lands is one example. Planning for more compact, sustainable communities, both urban and rural. Planning for growth in a way that considers water supplies, the biggest, water resource features, increased and enhanced communication between land use planners and water users.
Water quality, water quantity, fisheries habitat, grazing on public lands.
I don't see why we don't just go down and check them all. I mean, that's what was in it.
I mean, if you want to influence grazing on public lands, that's your spot right there.
I had no.
So people being quiet, this is jail search, people being quiet.
I think that some of these are really confusing.
So no,
It's almost impossible to distinguish what you do and don't check. I just find it so vague and so broad. You can make an argument to include all of them or exclude all of them.
Or, yeah.
So I mean, it's almost like it's not, it's company, I don't know why we're even checking. Here we go.
Madam Chairperson, I think we ought to remove Randy and Tim, and then we'll discuss.
We're okay with that. I'll second it.
Well, I got a fairly new general plan.
Yeah, I'm confused about this exercise in general, but especially this topic. Because what can we not check here? I mean, they're all related to all these elements. Land use planning, managing land.
In the essence of time, maybe on this one, I mean, we can get some clarification. I agree. I think it does. It seems that, and I can't help define that for you as well, like in terms of what we're going to take on, what we're not. It is sort of related, but in the end, we're probably going to just address a few points in the planning, and that may be something that really does come more out of the consulting group helping to synthesize this stuff. And so on some of these, if we just want to kind of punt a little bit, recognize that we know that it's all related, but not put too much energy in trying to decipher it right now, maybe that's the best thing to do, and we can get some better clarification on that, recognizing this could be a comment that goes to the management group and stuff, is that, you know, some of these we need some better clarification about where the community is going on this.
Yeah.
Before we sit here and keep a stab at it.
This topic certainly, I think, would be a good one to clarify or let them know that we are not really.
Okay.
I mean, that and the real vague ones are really hard to do because it's just like.
They're very vague.
Does any of the issues not belong in this one? Like, what does this have to do with the mines?
Man, you started that,
Surface Mining and Reclamation Act. I mean, when you look at the possible approaches, this very much points to me to like county planning.
Mm-hmm.
Directing development away from agricultural land which permits multiple objective management. Planning for more compact, sustainable communities, both urban and rural. Planning for growth in a way that considers availability of water resources, features such as streams, increased enhancement communication between land use planners and water managers. To me, it almost doesn't really fit with our group at all. It's more of a uni stuff.
Well, everything with integration of programs and better collaboration, why would we want to do that? So I would just say better collaboration is the only one you check.
Or why don't we just remove this whole thing from our list?
Can I just point out that other groups, what they've done is say, okay, they're just gonna request a meeting between water managers and land managers, like we do in the Almanor Basin once a year. There's things.
So then we can only check integration of programs and better collaboration can be done.
Yeah,
That's what I would recommend.
I was just thinking that now, and again, we're gonna have a meeting where all the groups are together, and some of this is gonna come out, like, you know, where we don't need to decide all of this today, and so trying to keep us.
Well, note that nobody put an X in this column either. They're all check marks.
Right, I think it's because it's related to everything.
We want a reflection of some of the values.
Randy's job.
Jeff?
I'm gonna apologize first for maybe saying something that's not a positive input here, but it's just an observation. It seemed really remarkable to me that there was so much interest in getting everything we could check in the ag land stewardship strategies, but then when we're talking about land use planning and management on public lands, there's kind of no interest in doing anything.
This is on private land.
No,
This is all private land.
It's just land use management.
Yeah, I was wondering if this includes the Forest Service and BLM.
The point I wanted to bring up was that 70% of the land in the county is managed by the Forest Service, and the decisions they make have a lot to do with grazing on national forest lands. So I would think that would be an appropriate box to check there.
Well, then, okay, so here's, again, this whole idea is we have to, as you see in the baseline steps, we have to show the relationship between our plan and these other plans. So we are gonna have a whole chapter on what does water have to do with land, the county general plans? What does it have to do with the forest plans? What does it have to do with the perk licenses? There's all these, the basin plans, there's all these mandatory plans that this thing has to be hooked into. It's just whether are we the group that has the talent or the experience to frame that, or is this something we're asking the management or consultant group to do, and then we're gonna comment on it? You know, I mean, it comes down to who's gonna write this thing and who's gonna review it? And are we gonna be writing this section? My guess is that we're not the planners, but we will comment.
We'll comment on it, and I think, yeah, rather than, yeah, since we're talking about.
Well, that's where this collaboration or integration of, that's where you get into this. It doesn't, the forest plan and the land use plan and the county are not hooking in this major way that affects us and water bodies. There's no fish passage planning program or whatever it is that people come up with, but it's so hard right now.
Some of these are so vague, I don't mean to say they're not important, but ecosystem, forest management, watershed management, land use planning, how do you not check it?
And then that may be it, all our issues are tied to that, and right now, if we just check all of them, that's fine, because we're still gonna tease out in the end, or how many recommendations, and we may find our issues get tied together too, so I guess I wouldn't stress too much about how many are marked now and how many are not, and it will really just boil down to how much.
But you're taking this back to the management.
We are management, but it's the first stab at what we say, we're trying to make the linkages, and that's, what we're trying to do, and that's gonna help us do the recommendations.
So again, I would just recommend better collaboration.
So better collaboration on that one, and we get some clarity too, if we need to.
And
do more.
integration of programs.
Yeah.
And let cross it to Randy and Tim, that's perfect.
And the forest service.
So let's do recharge area protection. Recharge area protection, natural recharge areas are those where good quality surface water is able to percolate the sediments and rocks to the saturated zone which contain groundwater. If recharge areas cease functioning properly, then they do not need sufficient groundwater for storage or use.
So it's a
one of
definite,
our big ones tied
it's
to
a definite
groundwater.
water quality issue, I believe.
Yeah, water quality, water quantity.
Oh.
Fisheries, habitat, waste.
Yeah, if you've got more water going down into the groundwater system, then your creek's gonna have water going every year, and it's a fisheries habitat issue.
What's the rest of the group feel? Is there?
I think, I don't disagree with that. If we're trying to focus on primary linkage, that's not one of that. Not to say it's not important, it's not a direct linkage with the purpose of this section.
Grazing of public lands. Degraded meadows.
Yes.
Wildfire impacts. Water body sediments. Water body. Conifer encroachment. Water storage, release, and impoundments.
Yes.
Flood management tenure.
I think that's got a huge link to recharge.
Preserving floodplains.
Yes.
Steady stream flow.
Yes.
Release. Improving wildlife habitat.
You've recharged, you put your springs and your seeps and it's got a huge one, I think, if that makes sense.
Improve recreation facilities. Sediment management. Abandoned mines. Salmon and Milford.
So that could apply. But, that's a reach. Salmon and Milford are a reach in any case, but.
Integration of programs, better collaboration. Do those.
I would begin supporting integration programs.
Yeah. And then CAE species. All right, so we have water quality, water quantity, degraded meadows, water storage, release, impoundments.
Whoa. Water quality, water quantity.
Degraded meadows, water storage, flood management, preserving floodplains, extending stream flow, improving wildlife habitat, integration of programs.
Explain to me what the flood management timing, how that relates to recharge, area protection.
The time where recharge is possible, the amount of time where recharge is possible.
Flood management, we're managing floods now. How does that?
The more
There's
water
water
that
now.
goes into the recharge, the less water is available to go downstream during floods. I think that's the link there.
Really?
All right, can we jump to sediment management?
Quality.
Do I need to read that one, or is that something pretty self-explanatory? I mean, I don't know. Management of fine solid fragmented materials such as silt, sand, and clay, which is suspended in or settled on the bottom of the water body. Sediment is used for beach restoration, renewal of wetlands and coastal habitats, maintenance of spawning beds and riparian habitat, and is useful in agricultural applications. But excessive sediment can lead to clouded water, degraded wildlife habitat, barriers to navigation, and decreased storage capacity on reservoirs, among other things. So water quality,
Yes.
water quantity,
So,
fisheries habitat.
yes.
I guess water quantity, just real quick, could just be, as reservoirs fill with sediment. If you have uplands that produce a lot of sediment, then you're going to decrease water
That's true. Look at
quantity stored
Yeah.
downstream over time.
Yeah.
So, that's just my statement. There is a connection there.
Like grazing on public lands.
Yeah. Did we do fisheries?
Yes. I'm sorry, yeah, fisheries was marked yes. Grazing was marked yes. Degraded meadows,
Yes.
wildfire impacts,
Yeah. Yes.
water bodies, sediments,
Absolutely.
conifer encroachment, water storage, release, and comments.
Yes. I mean, we just talked about sediment buildup behind dams.
That's a big concern.
Yeah.
Just trying to manage governments.
Flood management timing.
There is a linkage there. You've lost capacity in your reservoirs because of sediments.
Yep.
You can't
storage mesh. So, yeah.
Preserving floodplains,
Yes.
extending stream flow, water release, improving wildlife habitat.
I think if you're talking about fisheries,
Well, we kind of have a separate category for fisheries, so maybe we just,
right, if we already marked fisheries, then
yeah,
that's fine if we don't.
I think wildlife covers the rest of your,
Or,
yeah, non-aquatic species perhaps. Improve recreation facilities.
To the extent that the sediment builds up in lakes, I think there's an impact there, but I don't know. It's kind of tenuous for us.
Seems like a stretch for
we can
recreation facilities. You want recreation facilities, sediment management. Abandoned mines,
Yes.
salmon and milkport.
Well, that's an issue with spawn, isn't
Sediment and then the purpose.
You folks?
It's a lot of the same.
No. Integration of programs, with collaboration. Better collaboration,
I say yeah.
maintaining species.
We have a list of fishes.
Yeah.
I always want to catch this one at least, because then we've got to have citizens. To cover after this.
That's pretty good.
Sediment management, so one we mark water quality, water quantity, fisheries, grazing, integrated meadows, wildfire, water bodies, water storage, flood management, preserving floodplains, extending stream flow, improved recreation facilities, sediment management, abandoned mines, integration of programs, and collaboration.
We want to simplify that one. I think we could just check water storage, release, and impoundments, and that would get at that water quantity linkage and the flood management linkage and the water storage, water release, extending stream flow, water release link. You know what I mean?
Yeah, take water quantity out of there and focus on the ones that are more focused.
Yeah.
So take water quantity out of sediment management.
Yeah.
But because we
But have impoundments and.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're really looking at that, and then even flood management. I mean, Rock Creek is not really a flood control reservoir. No, it was not intended to be. You know, so.
And it's right now, we're about 3 hours power generation capacity.
So take out the flood management thing?
We can run the system so that.
I mean, just the focus on.
But you can't control it in floods, right? And you're just like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the real issue.
And extending stream flow. It's just my suggestion to try to do it.
Focus it, yeah.
Is flood management timing only limited to reservoirs?
For sediment issues. And things
Yes,
like that.
for sediment.
So watershed management, the process of creating and implementing plans, programs, projects, and activities to restore, sustain, and enhance watershed functions.
Check them
Another
all.
one of those, that's it.
It's almost the same thing as land use, right? They're almost.
As what?
It's
Land
so
use,
broad.
land use.
Or even the ecosystem one.
Yeah.
So can we just click integration of programs and better collaboration and move on?
Well, wait,
No,
the
no, no.
thing in between land uses is all this, like, legal framework for how you do land use planning. Watershed management is sort of an agreement among people
Too, yeah.
to make things better, it's more voluntary. You know, the framework is entirely different, really, for land use planning and watershed management.
And some of the examples are given, like improving upland vegetation management, improving water retention for base flow and streams, improving water quality and streamlet protection, wetland restoration, and improving groundwater and retention storage in major aquifers. What kind of covers?
And it's like people working together to do those things.
Right.
And this is one of your main.
And it is different than land use, but the impacts on these strategies or on these issues that we're looking at.
They might be the
similar.
same, except that as a work group, you might be able to affect watershed management by what your projects are or your actions, and you should be directing agencies to.
So this is another one that seems like you guys, just like ecosystem restoration, will probably take ownership almost across the board. I mean.
Well, it says that. It says that watershed management strategies are as diverse as they are as strategies listed in this table.
Yeah.
So everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the whole thing.
Mathematically.
So ecosystem restoration, watershed management are the two check-alls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Tommy said, I mean, they're pretty all encompassing. Outreach and engagement.
Use of public communication tools and practices by water agencies that provide the opportunity for public groups and individuals to contribute to positive water management outcomes.
So integration of programs,
I think
better collaboration.
I think that's good. Boil that down to. You're gonna educate about all those things, that's obvious.
Yeah. I mean, they're gonna have not direct but indirect impacts on everything on it.
Right. So I think the way that the outreach will happen is collaboration. Water and culture. So increasing the awareness of how cultural values, uses, and practices are affected by water management and how these have an effect on water management as well. Even regulations reflect cultural values, such as when water is viewed as a commodity rather than as a cultural resource. Some of the examples I give are enhanced communication and consultation with local tribes on fishery, forest, and watershed issues, consideration and incorporation of tribal ecological knowledge, and preservation and protection of historical and prehistoric features. I think it's the same as, yeah.
Integration and collaboration.
So I have kind of a comment here. Our culture is green lawns. That's not what we lay on the Native Americans, they're tearing up lawns and it's running all over the state like that. Just remember that water and culture is just not about Native Americans or historical resources. It's about the culture that we use water in today. So I'm not advocating checking anymore, but don't limit water and culture to just Native Americans and historical resources. Remember that that's how we do it today and how we think about using it.
I'd suggest that water quantity might be a part of that.
I agree. I mean, I think Randy just made a good argument for that to be included.
Okay, so we'll add water quantity as well as the other two. Last one. Water dependent recreation. So recreation activities in or on water, including fishing, swimming, skiing, and snowboarding, waterfowl hunting, motorboating, surfing, kayaking, activities that can be enhanced by water, such as wildlife viewing, picnicking, biking, relaxing on the beach, camping, hiking. So pretty much water dependent recreation. We're doing it water quality. I think this one's not going to have that many, so someone just throw out the ones I would say, including recreation facilities. Yeah.
And
Water bodies and sediments.
Water quality for sure.
Quality and quantity, especially quality and water issues that we have.
I want to try to launch a lake in Eagle Lake.
Do we want to add any others to that one?
We
Just have the two, water quality and improved recreation facilities.
I think I would make a case for extending stream flow for a stream fisherman. We'd like to be able to fish a little bit later in the season.
Would that be better in the fisheries habitat?
Yeah, I would think fisheries habitat might be an important one.
Yes, that one too.
Or maybe that one instead of extending the stream.
And again, improve recreation facilities. I think if we look at the stream as a recreation
have that
facility.
one.
Okay.
So add the three, water quality, fisheries habitat, and improved recreation facilities.
I think you have to consider if you're going to include fisheries, you got to look at wildlife.
Yeah.
And then, saltwater recreation is specifically geared toward reservoirs, whether it's water skiing or, lake fish type fishing. So we probably should have reservoirs in there.
So the water storage.
Water storage.
Release, what water flows, that's the issue in the floodplains.
And the salmon in the middle might find another boat here too.
Okay. So we have water quality, fisheries, water storage, extending stream flow, improved wildlife, and salmon.
How about, can I get an integration and collaboration?
Oh, why not?
Could it work?
Sure. We almost have So, everybody else maybe a little bit of a break, so maybe 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and regroup. We are not going to get to the agenda today, I can say that, but I think this was a really good exercise. I think this is such a diverse group, which is a good fit for everybody to kind of struggle with this and get it out and help you guys to define and see where we might need to focus our energies. So, we'll have a few other things we're going to look at, I'll probably send you a little bit homework. So, but anyway, we've got 10 minutes, and there's some food over there, and some coffee, bathroom, fresh air out the door.